Recording 1. If you're hearing this, something has already gone wrong. I don't know how to explain that with any precision yet. What I can say is this. 3 days ago, I didn't know this ledger existed. Tonight it's on my desk, and I can't account for how it got here, and the entries inside it describe events that official records say never happened. I'm documenting what I find because I've already noticed that things I observe stop being observable if I don't record them quickly. I don't know if that's a property of these objects or a property of me. I'm going to assume it's both until I have evidence otherwise. My objective tonight is simple. Examine the ledger and document what it contains before it changes again. Because it has already changed once. That's where this starts. The ledger is approximately 9 inches by 12. Hardcover. The binding is a dark material. I initially thought leather, but on close inspection under the desk lamp it has a consistency I can't place. Not leather, not canvas. Something in between, slightly uniform in a way that natural material isn't. The cover has no title, no label. The spine is blank. I know I've seen this ledger before. That's the first thing I want to document, the certainty of prior contact without any clear memory of it. When I picked it up tonight, it felt familiar in the way that a tool feels familiar. Not like something seen in passing, but something handled, something used. The weight of it was wrong for an object I'm supposedly encountering for the first time. The pages. There are approximately 200 of them, pre-ruled in light blue double columns. Entries fill roughly the first 150 pages. The handwriting changes across sections. Multiple contributors over what I'd estimate from the ink aging and paper discoloration is a period of several decades. The entries are formatted consistently regardless of whose hand appears. A name in the left column, a date range in the center, and a notation in the right column that varies. Sometimes a location, sometimes a short phrase, sometimes a single word. I'm going to document specific entries that require documentation. Page 12. A cluster of names from what I'd estimate is the 1940s based on the date ranges. All entries properly formatted, spacing consistent, nothing irregular. This is what normal looks like in this ledger. The date ranges here run in a clear sequence. One entry ends, the next begins, no overlap, clean handoffs. The notations in the right column for this section are single words or short phrases. One reads municipal. One reads restricted access. One reads withdrawn. These are not place names or filing codes. They describe states, conditions applied to whatever the entries are tracking. Someone was categorizing, not just recording. Page 19, the handwriting changes. Not gradually, a clean break between one entry and the next. Different pen, different hand, significantly different letter formation. The entries before the break are in a compact, upright script. The entries after are looser, with longer ascenders. 2 contributors, handing off at this page. The date ranges don't show a gap. The transition is seamless in terms of time, which means either 2 people were working simultaneously and one stopped and another started, or one contributor is imitating another's date conventions. I can't tell which. What I can say is that the contributor change at page 19 is not acknowledged anywhere in the ledger. No note, no signature, no explanation. The entries just continue in a different hand, as though nothing changed. Page 31, a gap. 6 blank lines between the entry above and the entry below. The date ranges on either side of the gap are consecutive. No time is unaccounted for, but the names that should fill those lines are absent. The paper in the gap is clean, too clean. A different shade of white than the surrounding pages, as though whatever was written there was removed rather than never written. I held the page at an angle to the lamp, looking for indentations. The kind left by a pen on the page above. Nothing. Whatever was written on those lines was removed without physical trace, which is not how erasure normally works. Ink leaves a ghost, whiteout leaves texture. These lines are simply empty, on paper that is subtly but distinctly cleaner than what surrounds them. Page 43. I want to be precise about this. Page 43 has a single entry that I need to read carefully and record exactly. Left column, a name, Hannah T. Morrison. Center column, a date range beginning in what appears to be the current decade. Right column, I can't read it. The notation in the right column has been struck through. Not lightly, several passes of the same pen, pressing hard enough that the paper beneath the strike-through is slightly compressed. The notation is gone. But the name is there. Hannah T. Morrison, clear, the ink darker than the surrounding entries, as though it was written more recently than the entries around it. The name was crossed out. The name came back. I'm recording this in the order I observed it. I first opened the ledger to a random page, found page 43 while searching forward, and saw the name crossed out. When I returned to page 43 approximately 10 minutes later, after examining other pages, the strike-through was still there, but the name was fully legible where before the crossing out had partially obscured it. The name wasn't crossed out that first time, or it was crossed out differently. I can't reconcile what I observed with what I'm now looking at, so I'm documenting both. Hannah T. Morrison. I don't know who this is. The date range suggests active involvement with whatever this ledger tracks within the last several years. The struck-through notation suggests someone decided to remove information about her after her name was already entered. I'm moving forward. Page 67, Martin O'Connor. This entry is irregular in a way that took me several minutes to identify. The spacing around it is wrong. The entry above O'Connor's has normal margins. The name begins at the same left column indent as every other entry on every other page. O'Connor's entry is shifted, slightly right, as though it was entered on a line that was already partially occupied or added after the surrounding entries were already in place. The date range is inconsistent with the entries immediately above and below. They run chronologically, but O'Connor's dates fall between two other entries in a way that would require him to have been active simultaneously with both. The paper at O'Connor's entry has a faint discoloration, darker than the surrounding page, as though this entry was made under different conditions, wetter conditions, or much later. The notation in O'Connor's right column is legible but strange. It reads C cross-reference. No cross-reference is indicated. No symbol, no page number, no direction. The instruction refers to something that isn't there. I went forward through the ledger after finding O'Connor's entry, looking for a cross-reference section, a supplementary index, anything that the notation might be pointing toward. Pages 68 through 85 are standard entries in the same two-contributor pattern. No reference section, no index. Whatever C cross-reference was pointing to has either been removed or was never added. The notation is complete. It gives an instruction, but the instruction leads nowhere. I spent time with this entry. I don't know what O'Connor's connection is to the ledger's purpose, but his entry was placed deliberately. Someone wanted his name in here and took care to insert it in a way that would blend with the surrounding material. It mostly does. Mostly. One thing I want to add before I move on. O'Connor's date range. I've been looking at dates across the entire ledger and establishing an approximate chronology. The entries in the 1940s cluster around page 12. Later entries, post-1960 based on the date ranges, appear toward the back half of the ledger. O'Connor's dates, if I'm reading the notation correctly, fall in the early 1920s. That puts him in a section of the ledger that should precede the page 12 cluster by 2 decades. He's not where he should be chronologically. Either entries aren't in chronological order, which contradicts everything else I've observed, or O'Connor's entry was placed on page 67 specifically, rather than where the chronology would put him. Someone chose this page. There are 3 items on the desk beside the ledger that I need to document before I lose the thread. The first is a photograph, roughly 4 by 6 inches black and white, showing the facade of a building. The building is 3 or 4 stories, brick, large windows. The street in front is empty. The photograph has no date on the face. On the back, in pencil, in handwriting I don't recognize, 47 Marginal Road. Nothing else. No date, no name, no explanation. I've looked at this photograph for several minutes and I cannot determine whether I've seen this building before. There's a feeling of recognition that I can't locate in any specific memory. The address on the back, 47 Marginal Road, means nothing to me. I've written it in my notes anyway. Something in the photograph keeps drawing my eye back to the upper floors. The windows on the second floor are dark except for one, which appears to be lit or reflects light differently than the others. I can't tell if this is a feature of the original photograph or a development artifact. The second item is a cassette tape. Standard size, no label on either side, no writing on the case. The tape inside appears to be standard magnetic stock. I can see the reels through the case window, and the tape looks used, not new. One reel is noticeably fuller than the other, which means the tape has been played before, possibly many times, and is currently queued somewhere past the beginning. I rewound it to the start before playing. I have a player. This desk has a player. I'm going to note that without investigating why there's a cassette player on a desk I work at, without remembering placing one here, and I've queued the tape. I've played approximately 40 seconds of it. The first 30 seconds are static. Then there's audio. I've only listened to the opening. I'm going to come back to this tape and document it more carefully in a subsequent session, because the fragment I heard requires concentration I don't have right now. What I can record is that the audio contains at least one voice, that the voice is speaking in a register suggesting the recording was not made in a controlled environment, and that one phrase came through clearly enough to write down before it dissolved back into static. It is not just. It is not just. That's the fragment. I don't know what follows it. But the phrase has a structure. It's the middle of a sentence, not the end. Whatever precedes "it is not just" is context, and whatever follows is the conclusion. I'm missing both. What I have is a fragment that implies a larger argument, which is its own kind of information. Someone was making a case for something. What they were saying, it was not just. That's what I need to recover. The third item, a small key, brass. The kind of key that opens a simple lock. Not a deadbolt, not a modern mechanism, something older. Attached to the key by a short loop of wire is a small tag, stamped metal, with the number 47 pressed into it. 47, the same number as the address on the photograph. I'm not going to speculate about that yet. I'm documenting it. The key doesn't match any lock I can identify in this room. I've checked the obvious places, the desk drawers, the small cabinet in the corner. Nothing. The key is in my possession. I'm keeping it because it's evidence of something, and I don't know what, and because leaving archive material unattended has already demonstrated consequences I don't fully understand. There's one more item to document. At some point during the last hour, I can't identify exactly when, a folded piece of paper appeared on the corner of the desk. I did not place it there. I was sitting at this desk. I did not see it arrive. The note is brief. 2 words, handwritten in a different hand than the photograph's inscription. Darker ink. The letters are pressed hard into the paper. You can feel the impression on the reverse side. The underline beneath each word is so heavy the pen nearly went through. It reads, "Stop looking." I'm recording this note as evidence, not as a warning I intend to follow. What I will say about it is this: someone knows I'm here. Someone knows what I'm examining. And rather than removing the materials, which they apparently could do given the evidence of the ledger's alterations, they chose to leave a note. That's a choice. A note is a communication. A warning is still a form of contact. I find that more interesting than frightening. It's late. I want to get the tape documented before I stop, but the fragment I heard on first play requires more attention than I have right now. I'm going to return to it in the next session. What I can confirm from tonight, the ledger is real and has been altered. Page 43 contains Hannah T. Morrison's name crossed out and then legible again. Martin O'Connor's entry on page 67 was inserted after the surrounding entries were made. A photograph shows 47 Marginal Road. A cassette tape contains audio of unknown origin. A key labeled 47 is in my pocket. A note told me to stop. I haven't stopped. Page 43. The strike-through is gone. The name is there. Hannah T. Morrison. The ink dark and clear. But the heavy crossing out that was there 20 minutes ago is not. The notation in the right column, the one that was struck through beyond reading, is now only lightly marked. I can see characters beneath it. I can almost read it.